Hey guys, it's been way too long since I've recorded a HippoScribe tutorial. Let me show you a little thing I created. Now, this is for those of you who like to use functional outcome measures for your documentation. In this example, I'm primarily focused on the lower extremity and upper extremity functional scale. But let me show you what I did. I'm going to show you how to do this across a couple platforms. First, let's take a look at HippoScribe. Now, this is not real data. This is data that I created for the purpose of this tutorial. I'll show you real quick. This is using, I don't even remember. I think it's the upper extremity functional index. Um, Basically, what I did was I dictated the numeric scores for each of the items on my list of 20 items. If you're not familiar with the upper extremity functional scale, I'll show you here. You can go find these online, 20 functional items from doing buttons and vacuuming, driving, preparing food. And the scoring is from 0, extremely difficult, unable to perform, up to 4, no difficulty at all. So what I did for my prompts within HippoScribe, let me jump into my templates. I'm just going to read it real quick. So I said, I will provide a numeric score for each of the 20 activities listed below. The scoring system will be 0 through 4. Please take any activity with a score of 1 or 0 and generate a statement in this format: colon, quote, activity dash current functional level is, input the score, out of 4. Prior functional level is 4 out of 4. Now, I'm assuming that the patient was a 4 out of 4 on all of the functional activities. I treat primarily outpatient orthopedic. I do a lot of post-op, so most of my patients coming in were a 4 out of 4. And then create a second list of statements for the same activities and generate a goal statement in the format of, quote, patient will demonstrate 4 out of 4 with, enter the activity. Provide these statements in a list. And I said, then create a second list of statements that corresponds to the first list in this format. And I just repeated it one more time. My goal is patient will demonstrate 4 out of 4 with, and then list the activity. I gave it the 20 items from the functional outcome measure. I also mentioned the definition of scoring, and then that's what I get. So if I just dictate the score from the sheet, like 0003, the 3 is not going to be listed in the report. Only scores that are 0 and 1, I think, is what I did. 0 and 1. And so you can see here, like, this is a 0, this is a 1, this is a 0, this is a 1. If we look, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 assessments. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 goals. Pretty basic, right? And third-party payers are telling us, Medicare tells us they want us to use a functional outcome measure that's peer-reviewed, accepted by the profession. This is a great option, but you can use anything. You can do this with Berg, Tenetti. You could do it with Optimal from APTA. Remember, everything in HippoScribe is HIPAA compliant. Now, if you want to do something like this and you're not a HippoScribe member, but you have ChatGPT 4.0, you cannot put patient information, PHI, in ChatGPT 4.0 because it's not HIPAA compliant. But if you're just using raw scores, you can basically do something similar. So I said, here are 20 items from the upper extremity outcome measure, and I uploaded the PDF. I listed it just like you saw on HippoScribe. I said, do you understand what this is? And it gave me a response. And then I told it, I said, I want you to take each one of those things. I want you to assume in this model, I said, I want you to assume a score of 2 out of 4. And then prior level of function was 4 out of 4. So it ran through, gave me a list of everything, gave me prompts to use. Then I said, okay, using the following scores. So I made up these scores. go ahead and give me the output. And this is what we've got. So you can see here the first 3 items I scored a 2. Here's a 2, here's a 2, here's a 2. Then the next one I scored a 4, and you can see current functional level of 4. So it went through, gave me all of this, and it gave me goal statements of 4 out of 4 for everything. But we're not going to realistically use every item on the list. So then I went back and I said, now can you only do this for items that I scored a 2 or lower? And so the list of 20 got cut to a list of 12. I've got 12 current functional levels that are 2, 1, or 0. And then we've got 12 goals that are 4 out of 4. And of course, you can go back and you can change this if your patient's never going to get back to a 4 out of 4 for driving. You can address that. But the idea is, okay, so now we've got this. What do we do with it? Well, it's super easy to just copy and paste this directly into your EMR or whatever documentation system you're using. I also went ahead and created an Excel spreadsheet where I basically have a fax cover page on top. The way I set this up is here. I'm going to double click on the 2. This gives me a list of referring physicians. And when a new physician refers me a patient, I add that name, including fax number and MPI, to one of my reference tables. So if you know anything about Google Sheets, you know that here I'm going to scroll up and kind of show you guys. Here is my reference list for doctors. So I just add the next doctor to the bottom of the list and it's going to populate. But the way this basically works, let me do it here. So like, let's pretend Dr. Albright refers me a patient. Now, of course, it's going to prove me wrong and it's not going to show. Let me see here. Okay. So I'm going to switch doctors. Dr. Burkhart. I get the fax cover fax number. By default, most of my evaluations, including the fax cover page, are 4 pages. So I just have 4 in there. My return fax is here. I would put the patient's name in here. So James Doe, and then the patient's date of birth, 02/07, 1975. I don't know if you realized it, but down below, this is where the evaluation and the plan of care start, and it auto-populates the patient's name and the patient's date of birth. Then, for example, if I was doing the evaluation right now on a PC, if I hold Control and press the semicolon, it gives me today's date. If I double click on treatment diagnosis, I have my most common treatment diagnoses in here. So let's pretend we're doing right knee pain. What's cool about this is for subjective, right? Reason for the referral, history of present illness. There's a couple ways that we can do this. One of the tools that I like to use is this. You can do what do you call that? The Windows key and H. It opens this little listening feature. And now what's happening is it is recording the audio and turning it into dictation. I'm going to hit enter. And you can see that it populated all right there. I can stretch this out a little bit. There are other tools that you can use. So I'm going to delete that for a second. There's a Chrome plugin if you're on Chrome. Patient presents to physical therapy today with chief report of right knee pain secondary to osteoarthritis, period. Patient reports knee pain not responding to conservative care and rest, period. So again, we've got our subjective report, but you can also use HippoScribe. This is probably my favorite feature. Now, I don't have a made-up recording, and I can't share any patient information, but HippoScribe will record, the ambient listening feature will record you and your patient talking about the case history. Hey, Mrs. Patient, nice to meet you. My name's Tony Maritato. I'm going to be working with you today. So what's going on? What are we working on? The patient tells you everything that's going on. HippoScribe records that, transcribes it, you drop it, cut and paste right into this box. we've got room for objective measure, range of motion, strength. And then down here is kind of an interesting section. I'm going to delete that for a second. I'm going to delete this for a second. Here is where we have the current and prior level of function. So if I double click on this, I've got all of the items from the lower extremity functional scale with kind of pre-populated deficits based on what's typical for my kind of referral. So if I choose usual housework, school activity, 2 out of 4 current level of function. What if they're a 0 out of 4? No big deal. I just change it to 0. What if they're a 3 out of 4? No big deal. I change it to 3. It's really simple. And again, I'm assuming the prior level was a 4 out of 4, but maybe prior level was a 3 out of 4. So I switch it to 3. I've got it there. But the idea is I can go through this and I can manually select the ones that I want to include in my documentation, because maybe not everything on the 20 items is deficient. I just want to focus on the deficiencies. But what I am coming here for is to show you guys, hey, look, I can also, based on my dictation, based on HippoScribe, taking the scoring that I read off the piece of paper, I can copy that. I can come back into my evaluation. I can paste it. And then just from a formatting perspective, I just merge the fields horizontally and it drops everything in there in one shot. So let's think about what just happened. I gave the patient, let's say, the paper version of this document. Whatever the patient scored each one of these items, I got the document back. I turned on HippoScribe. I read the scores right from the page. Then HippoScribe said anything with, I got to go back. I can't remember. Let's see. Anything with a 1 or a 2 score, I'm going to create a goal for that. I'm going to create a current functional assessment for that and a goal functional assessment for that. And that's effectively what it did when we're looking at this. And then in a separate set of columns or separate column, I can copy that. I can come in here and I can drop my goals right in there. I can change my dates as needed. There's a lot of functionality that I can do in here. And then of course, again, I can dictate my assessment, or I can pull my assessment from HippoScribe, which listened to the conversation and generated an assessment based on what I said during the patient engagement. There's a lot to think about in this. There's a lot of back and forth. You guys can do this in so many different ways that I think it's almost more challenging because there are too many options for a lot of therapists. I am working on figuring out the best workflow that works for me. I've been using these for a couple months now, and I'm still tweaking, still refining. I know for me, HippoScribe is amazing for the first 10 minutes of an initial evaluation, because that's when I'm getting all the information from the patient directly about the patient. I've noticed in my situation, once we go past 10 minutes, now the patient's telling me about brothers and sisters, patient's telling me about neighbors, about last summer, like we're talking about social and we're interacting with other people in the clinic. I lose the specificity. Those first 10 minutes or so are really where I can mine all of the data that is specific to the patient. I also noticed that HippoScribe is amazing for recording range of motion measurements or any kind of objective measures as long as I verbally say them. So I don't typically do a lot of range of motion, but if I have a more complex situation and I need to take measurements, I will take the measurements, orally say the measurements, verbally say it so that HippoScribe can record it, transcribe it into a chart, and I just drop that chart into any documentation platform that I'm using. I do use an EMR, but I also wanted to show you what Google Sheets functionality is like. There are just so many options out there, guys. So let me know what you think. Let me know what you guys are doing. If you're on HippoScribe, you can absolutely create a free trial. I'll put a link down in the description if you want to try it for free. But it's one of those things where once you use it the first time, you're going to realize how powerful it can be and really how much it can help.